Hello there. This is Thunder Drummer story. This is something roughly based off of a story that I've already smallly done on Instagram. I decided to actually give it a real full length thing. Um so here we go. Alright. Starting off this story. Um um our main protagonist is just being born, and his brother is seeing this from the shadows, like, pissed. He never wanted a brother. He didn't want any competition on who should become the head of the family. And even though he was very young at this point, he despised his brother. And he's not even barely coming out of his mother yet. You can barely see his. He watched everything, and then he decides to work harder. Um, and yeah, whatnot. So he starts training a lot more. He starts studying a lot more, and so on and so forth as years go by. Um, the only time his brother even acknowledged his our main protagonist assistant, our existence, was when mother or father was around. Our young protagonist seemed not to really care. He was always in a book, and never around when you really needed him. Or he was always in a book, always like outside in a tree reading, or look inquisitive. Um, and yeah, the brothers never really clashed or anything because, our main protagonist brother, Eric, um, didn't wasn't a monster, but he hated his brother. He wouldn't give him any help. He wouldn't show him any sort of kindness or nothing. He literally, other than when his family was around, um, it was nothing. So, and one other notable outcome is this family was the top nobles of their entire kingdom. They're the highest ranking noble as you can get, which still be some secrets spread or told throughout the story, but we're not going here or there. Um, our protagonist, call him Jake, from State Farm. All right, no, let's call him Jake. Um, he always he trained, but not in the same way as his brother. He used he trained more with his environment, how to do stuff in that manner. There was guards and stuff always around him, and his nose was usually always in a book, even when he was training. He actually learned to use magic at a very young age, which even more infuriated his brother Eric. And the head of the house, their father, seemed to never really care, and even encouraged the rivalry to a certain. Their mother ended up dying about when Jake was about 4 years old. And also another notable mention is the years on this planet is like every year is like 2 years of our time, but they grow to the point of our time, like our of their time period. Like it'd be more like a 24 month in 1 year type situation, even though it's not exactly like that. Just the days are a lot longer, and but they still grow to their system and not to what we normally. So keep that in mind when it comes to. So like a 4 year old is actually more around 8, and a 12-year old is more 24 in our looking things. All right, back to the story. Um, our protagonist, like I said, Jake just kind of trained on his own, kind of stayed out of the way of most of the public eye and whatnot. But he also noticed how his brother was treating him. So he created a plan. His plan was basically um he was gonna create a situation where he was gonna fake his own death. And he's about 10 years old at this point. And I said the father is there, but he's not really there. Um, there ain't nothing like super gaming on either side, but like I said, you could still feel the attention, and even his father was starting to think that there might be other reasons for this. Well, one thing that they really didn't know is Jake lived multiple different lives because of a crazy goddess. So our protagonist was an actual adult in the body of an 8 year old or in a body of a 10 year old, which would make our Eric about 14, 15 ish. Okay. Well, he had Jake hashed the plan. He wrote in a bunch of different notebooks and stuff theories about some of his past life, um, past lives, how when you're ruling over a place, which he thought there was just that territory, but it can even work for kings, that you're the people's servant, not in the literal sense, but you're there to keep their lives from falling apart. You're there to protect the people under you. You're there to understand the difficulties and stuff that they're so you can make their lives better, which will also improve your life. Well, he was writing a bunch of different things like this, different ways for that about accounting and how to truly manage money and things where even wartime as making sure to build up efforts even through common blood to help protect one's nation and whatnot. And he was writing this, it's like, and then he put a note on the very top. There was like 20 books he hid inside of his room behind a secret wall that he found out that his brother hid some stuff in. He didn't know quite what it was, but he was like some pills and stuff that usually helped him train harder, quicker, and longer. More or less like a stimulant that wasn't like, something equivalent to coffee, but yeah, a little bit stronger and had proteins and stuff in there to help him, train longer and harder. And then even through some just training your muscles and just won't really help, but you need to start building agility. You need to start building um actual sword movements, being able to adapt your own energies to your blade. It actually gave him quite a bit of secrets to make him OP. And stuff too, because he did love his brother. And he didn't want his brother to fail, and he did not want any recommendations for him leading, which one of the contentions of what was going on is back when our protagonist was 4 years old, he found a great beast that was on the lands that he shouldn't have been able to get to. Well, him and the great beast accidentally sharing some of his power ended up granting him a egg. Whoever owns the egg actually ends up becoming the head of the house. And when the current head of the house finally bites the dust, which severely, even though he hid it for years, of course, his family eventually found out when his dad went up there to speak to his beast. Which later you'll find out that the beasts are called rulers um servants. They were a divine beast that actually showed your right to rule, which we won't find that out for quite a while, but it is what it is. Um, so he's 10 years old. He's coming up with a plan to fake his death. Well, for one, his father didn't have any idea how strong he was or what he could really do. I mean, a protagonist could actually fight, like crazy fight, even at a young age, but never wanted to show his older brother Eric up. Well, so what he did is he ended up finding a mountain lion cub that he found that it was actually the beast of a forest monarch kid. So it was a lot more powerful than your average. Brought him back to his room and fed the mountain lion cub his hand, like, and but then spread like some of his fingers and stuff all around the room. Make sure to spread like a bunch of blood. And then as the reader, um, they're looking at this and like, I don't know why. Um, he had the ability to heal himself to various degrees, and he planned this over him. So he already built up the magic inside himself for him to instantly grow another arm right after this happened, using a combination of magics that he's learned in his previous lives. Well, keep in mind, this kid has explored just about everywhere. But this is where the story is about to actually take off a little. Well, and then he ends up putting all the stuff in the right places, getting the cub into the room. Um, Trust me, they can't outright kill a monarch without causing a massive amount of damage because they have their own ecosystem to go back and forth. Because if the monarchs keep monsters in check in their territories and usually have agreements with um, the human or the settlement of some kind, usually in the area about like a give and take relationship. Like they give them like a certain food or certain mineral, and then they help keep down the um monsters and stuff in a tech area, and usually lets them know when there's a little bit of an overgrowth and they need to bring some adventures and to call down some of the population of monsters. And it's like I said, it's a system that's always been there. And also when the pup actually ate our main protagonist's arm, he grew in strength by leaps and bounds. He grabbed his egg and minimum clothing, and he took off after this out of the mansion, out of and far, 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 far into the woods. Places where normally no human would want to go, let alone actually go. Well, then is when this happened. I mean, at first it worked. His father thought he was dead, but then realized if he would have been, he would have found out by his divine beast. So his father knows that he's alive. He just don't know what's going on and where he's at, and he can't make a overlying statement or a search party without causing a whole bunch of other problems. So he's kind of like stuck in a hard between a hard place and a nuclear bomb, which is not a good place to be. Um, so he has a small group that actually looks for him under hush hush conditions. Well, they never do find him because he's basically in no man's land. All right, this is where everything catches back up to current timing. Eric, our protagonist brother, actually put what his brother into actual action. He started training his mind a lot more. He started actually working with and identifying like the people under him and actually started seeing what they did and how things were really done, which no noble, not even his father, even pretended to give a crap about. It was like it's 1,001 chance to turn over a new leaf. And he was grateful for his brother and has felt really down about how he's perceived and perceives other people. Well, he was preserving a town on one day, and he just walked into a borderline town of his territory that he hasn't really gotten a good chance to really do much with. So he was going down there to see what they did, what they could do, and he found out that it was more like a adventure a hub to go to several different territories from that spot. Go to his territory or Duke Francis territory or Cardinal Vasquez church town thingy. Um it's basically like a holy city where it's mainly priest in training, prophets, seers, priestess, cardinals, whatnot, up to the very top. And it usually had one woman and one man that were equal to each other. The main priestess and the main priest, which is battled throughout the politics and not being slouches either. Battle, even though they don't go to battle as much as everybody else. And then the other road is the road to the capital. So a lot of people come down through this way, especially merchant, the small, like a small town, almost, or a small town, but not quite small enough to be a village because this place really does pump out a lot of money, but it don't look like a actual city because it's also an adventure hub as well. And you got one of the five great generals that the general of defense that is also there that he protects his crown from his how he ends up retiring from saving the world. So this town is actually super indebted to this guy, but he's still under the area that his family owns. But anyway, our protagonist is walking into town. He heard a commotion about this homeless guy that basically came in without any ID, without anything, and they ended up putting him straight to jail. But he didn't know about that yet. He just saw a motion and then people carrying this homeless looking guy off. Um, once the guy that we were talking about earlier saw our saw Eric, our protagonist's brother, he ran over to him, bowed his head, and be like, "Sir Eric, how are you doing today?" Sir Eric looked at him and like, "What was going on with all that?" Well, it was just some homeless guy. Um, didn't have any ID of any kind, any identifying marks, so we're just putting him in jail for right now, and we'll deal with the rest in the morning. He was like, "Oh, okay. Can you give me a full report about that when you're done?" Which our field adventurer gritted his teeth, but still smiled and is like, "I sure will. As soon as you get done interrogating him in the morning, I'll show you all the paperwork." I mean, this guy doesn't even have a class seal yet. He looked down and was like, "How does one person don't have a class seal? Everybody gets one shortly after they're 10 years old. Everybody from the smallest, most poorest villager to the king of this country. Because you have no actual physical way to actually start your journey on defending, being able to defend yourself or create getting a class to start training in to start building stuff. Combination of building and destruction. And even the smallest jobs like farmers, without them, We wouldn't have half the yields we have when it comes to food. Even to the highest class of Iron Sage does a little bit of everything. So you're telling me this guy didn't even have a month? Nope. Tomorrow morning was actually thinking about going ahead and forcing him to go to the church. Shook his head and that might be a good idea. What did he actually have on him? Just some old raggedy clothes. Some pretty okay armor. It's we forced them to take off that we're gonna get identified too. But really wild man type stuff. Like he's actually crafted stuff from dead monsters and whatnot. Because in his mind, there is a guy without a crust shouldn't have any way of being able to be able to defend himself. He comes to find out is massively wrong. So Eric says, "All right, I'll go ahead and go to the end and figure this shit out in the morning." All right, now we're going to Jake's point of view. Jake's POV. Jake has lived in Monster Kingdom. That's what everybody likes to call it. Um, S rank dungeon slash mountain ever since he ran away from his family. We don't know exactly how he got there, but he used the dungeon more as like a base and then yeah, dungeon as a home. I mean, even the dungeon himself is like, nope, the new safe area, your house and surrounding area. After he threatened to destroy the dungeon with extreme effort. Our guy, which is without a save mark, has been doing some skill mark, not slave mark. Sorry about that. Training his magic, been training his swordsmanship, and even made himself multiple different weapons and armor. Most of it he has a swords dimension, which is his spatial magic. Keep in mind, he's done this without any work of the system to help promote power, give people a heads up so they can defend themselves against the monsters of the world. because he's never been to any sort of church whatsoever. He was supposed to go the day after he faked his death. He never really paid attention to him, but he didn't want to deal with the goddess yet either. So he's basically trained, crafted, and worked on in the woods without any sort of real human answer, because there is some monsters that have intelligence to be able to talk and whatnot that he talked to, so he wouldn't go nuts. Well, so he's been doing this for years, and he finally come to this town village thing, tried to sell some of his wares so he can actually um join like an adventurers guild or something. He heard this was the best place to actually start getting trained up, be an adventurer, because he never wants any pure responsibilities ever. Like, he will not become the hero, doesn't want extreme tension brought onto himself or anything like that. He just wants to live his life, have fun, kill some monsters, and craft some stuff to make the world around him a better place. So he starts walking towards the town gate and sees two guards, which immediately points spears at him, because he looks like a hobo at this point. His hair is like all over the place. He looks filthy. Um, very unkept beard, hair. He doesn't. He has like a torn piece of cloth around his arms outside of his armor. Basically, it looks like a bunch of pelts off of some like lions or wolves or something, or a mixture of, covering his body for that. And these two guards started yelling at him, "Get back! Identify yourself!" He tells them his name is Jake, that he got abandoned in the woods, and he's just been surviving ever since he was 10 years old. And he thinks his parents are dead and gone, protecting him. Of course, the guards are skeptical and call the adventure guy that pretty much is in charge of security of this town. He has this real noble attitude, like the snottiness. Oh, it's because he is an actual noble too, but he's also worked for everything he's actually ever done. Well, when he gets there, he would start. He smells the smell off this dude. And his first words on his mouth is, "Where's your status crest?" Our protagonist then repeats himself. He's been out in the wilderness for 10 years, 20 years if you want to do it in our time. That he just basically had to learn to survive without any sort of abilities or anything. That he had to learn how to do everything. Thinking that this guy is probably a monster in disguise, he doesn't want to take any chances and tells them, "We're gonna put you in jail cell for and starts carrying him to the jail cell." While our protagonist hasn't really used, didn't really refuse him, and went ahead and let him throw him in jail. And keep in mind the ID system in this world primarily goes from their status system, which is in their crest. Without a crest, there ain't no way to identify who you truly are or not. So they have no way of confirming or denying who he is as a person. And he kind of gets that. One of the reasons why he hasn't really poked his head out into any civilization up to this point. But he kind of really needed some money so he can actually start exploring the world instead of just being on Monster Mountain. So they take him to the jail cell and then let him sit there to rot for the night. Didn't give him no food or water, which he had his spatial magic, so he wasn't like doing without. Which I didn't know that. Well, at about really early morning hours, about 1 or 2 o'clock our time, group of red dragons start attacking the town for semi good reasons too, but either here or there. Which startles our protagonist out from a deep sleep when he sensed some weak power signatures coming towards him. Keeping in mind um how he sees things about like the same as a god sees normal people. Everybody's gonna be compared to him. About to get a big power boost in a little bit too. It's before he went to bed. He finally used a knife that's in his inventory and actually shaved the sides of his hair. I have more like a mohawk type deal that he tied in a bun. and he started really working on his clothing, getting making a really simple shirt and pants with some stylish boots from where he used to work, like army boots, and this trench coat, and really started working on his weapons as well, combining. He also has the ability to combine great. Um, so he started combining a whole bunch of different types of armors with different effects, skins, all into this trench coat and his actual clothes for simple clothes, just with this nice trench coat. Pure black, like black as ink type black. I mean, it's so black that looking at it too long you can actually think that you're actually about to fall into a black hole. Black. And then he had, which he put the swords up at the moment by his sides, but he put them up in his, because waking, if a guard ends up coming to him, he has his weapons on him. He didn't want shit to go down and people to do stupid shit, which tends to happen. Well, about four adult red dragons ends up attacking the town, with one flying over, flying orders, troop move stuff. They wanted to wipe this town off the map just to show their own superiority. And sometimes you have to put to ask somebody like that for shit to change. Well, generally the town, including Eric and the Grand Champion, was having a really hard time pushing back one of the dragons, let alone the other four, which was doing some major damage to cargo, the townspeople, and then a large hole ends up being blasted out of the prison. Looks around, he's close to the back wall of the prison anyway to try to. So he ends up walking out of the hole looking like a almost completely different people, and he looks up and sees this flying dragon straight up in the air, realizes that he's giving troop movements and stuff to his soldiers. So his first plan of attack is to pull out his bow and ends up shooting a mana bolt that's about the size of a house to obliterate. So yeah, sorry about the little gap in right there. I get relaxed when I do long stories and stuff sometimes, and I never get great sleep. So I apologize for that. Well, anyway, um a protagonist ends up walking out of the jail cell, which just been blown to smithereens nearly. Sees the dragons and dragon in the air. He pulls out this bow, shoots at dragon in the air with a bolt of energy that's about the size of a normal house, and kills the dragon. Like goes right through the neck of this dragon, and the dragon from up top ends up falling down in the middle of the road. Um, then they start the other dragons holler in anger because that was their friend. So the other drangers hollered and roared in anger. He ended up flying past the guard, trying to really take down the biggest threats, which was Eric, which was a superior grade swordsman. Actually, has even dark and some light magic spells that he can cast on himself or his weapon, which he learned half of that from books before he got his official skills. Well, he jumps over the wooden towers, which was actually mixed with wood, metal, several different types of metals, and the solution he had no idea what it was, and then just jumps over and this thing about pushes off the steel over the top and ends up basically going to town on these five dragons, killing them all in less than 20 seconds. Comes in with his one of his swords and cuts through the neck of the dragon without mercy or hell. When one sword up accident, another sword hitting another dragon, and it's like in 10 seconds, all five dragons was defeated after the last one in a row, which was the third one. The queen was actually going to actually defend herself when just because she turned, she saw that she got her opening. What the barbarian guy from the north, and he ends up getting his soul crushed by a special ability from Eric. Well, then he sucks up two of the furthest dragons, dragon that was in the middle of the town, saying, "Get some racist stuff for it." So, which both Eric and his the adventure guy, I'm gonna call him Poncho, saw this guy head back to the hole in the wall, gets out and climbs back on his bed and pretends to go to sleep. As Eric looked back at the carnage that he saw, his very first words that comes out of his mouth at the end of this particular episode of 1001. That dude is stronger than yourself. Killed those monsters in a minute. So this is the end of this story. Sorry, at the end I got a little drowsy. Um, we'll be picking this up at some point. And of course, if I get 4 likes on video, I get 4 likes on, I am going to make another video soon as I possibly can. Peace out today. Sorry for being a little sleepy at the end.